right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Bloodsuckers 1971. Giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I love this flick. This is going to be one of those vampire flicks that blows your mind, right up there with Martin. It's got the great Patrick Macnee from The Avengers, also starring Peter Cushing from Doctor Who, Hammer horror films. You know the drill. What a great movie poster that is. We like that movie poster. It says, "For the damned, also known as Bloodsuckers, Freedom Seeker, and Doctors Wear Scarlet." Did I mention that the ending sent chills up my spine? This movie is just incredible. This is a 1971 British horror film directed by Robert Hartford Davis and starring Patrick Macnee, the famous nudist who played Tennyson the Nude. He also played Secret Agent John Steed in the television series The Avengers from 1961 to 1969. You've got Johnny Secca, a Senegalese actor. I don't even know who he is. Madeline Hind, Alexander Davian, Peter Cushing, the great Peter Cushing, appeared in more than 100 films, and Edward Woodward. It is based on the 1960 Simon Ravel novel, Doctors Wear Scarlet. The film centers on Richard Fountain, a scholar of Greek mythology at the University of Oxford, who has fallen under the influence of Chryseis, a mysterious Greek woman who is a modern-day vampire. Oh, we love this story. We love the plot here. Richard Fountain, a brilliant young Don at Oxford's fictional Lancaster College, has lost touch with friends after going to Greece to research a book on mythology. Concerned about him, Penelope Goodrich, Richard's informal fiancé, Tony Seymour of the Foreign Office, and Bob Kirby, one of Richard's pupils, traveled to Greece to find him. Tony goes to the office of Major Derek Longbow, the British military attaché, to ask his help in finding Richard. Derek tells him that Richard had fallen in with a strange woman named Chryseis. Fueled orgy. This is where you see a lot of giant white women breasts with the areola stretched out and the pink nipples going, during which a woman is ritually sacrificed. This is a part that's going to get me in trouble when I go to confession. Yeah, I was 1 year old when this movie came out. It's a good time capsule for 1971, let me tell you. It's got the drug-induced orgy going. That's probably how my mom got pregnant when she was 19. Bob tells Tony that Richard can't make it with Penelope. Tony replies that Richard has never made it with anyone. Richard doesn't have his Richard fully erect. Derek then tells Tony of the rumor that Dr. Walter Goodrich, the provost of Lancaster College and also Penelope's father, is the cause of Richard's impotence. Richard doesn't have his Richard. Tony says that Bob has told him that Richard came to Greece in search of of some freedom to seek his manhood. Derek wonders aloud if Bob's African background includes an overactive imagination. This movie's great. All right. Production company, Lucinda Films, distributed by Titan Film Distribution and Chevron Pictures in the U.S. Release date 1971. Running time 87 minutes. Pretty decent running time. Country, United Kingdom, and language, British English. Richard has taken to a monastery on Hydra because of an unnamed ancient disease, which has to do with the blood. But the abbot reveals that Cheresias didn't want Richard cured, just kept alive. The abbot believes that Cheresias will soon tire of Richard and let him die. Penelope has a vision of Richard's death. According to Bob, it was only a hallucination caused by her overconsumption of the monk's potent moonshine in the hot sunshine. Bob, Tony, and Derek leave her in the care of the monks and set out on mules to find the ancient fort that the abbot says Richard is in. This is great cinematography of Greece in 1971 right here. Arriving at the fort, they discover a still catatonic Richard watching Cheresias direct the sacrifice of another woman. Derek, Tony, and Bob burst in to rescue the woman. They succeed, but Cheresias and her friends escape with the mules. The next day, Derek sends a protesting Penelope back to the UK so that she won't see Richard in a poor condition. Near the fort, and both mule-mounted, Derek pursues Cheresias up a steep path. Cheresias dismounts and runs. Derek follows. Cheresias slips on some rocks, which tumble down on Derek, knocking him over the cliff. Tony tries to save him, but he falls to his death, as prophesied by Richard, who doesn't have a Richard. The Year of Dirty Harry, Diamonds Are Forever, Son and the Big Boss, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, The French Connection, and Shaft. Yeah, mention every movie from 1971 except for this one. The most important one here is Bloodsuckers. Bob. Well, Dirty Harry was pretty decent. The Big Boss, I think, was Bruce Lee's best film, as far as I know. Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory was a great book. I read it during the summer of 1976. I can't even remember. But the movie is great also. You get nothing. Well, Diamonds Are Forever, Red Sun. Karate Man's in the chat room trying to get me to stop talking about Bloodsuckers and start talking about other films from the same year. I'll see if I have Diamonds Are Forever, Red Sun, and Shaft on my list later. Okay. So the nudist tennis player, John Steed, falls off the cliff. Bob finds Cheresias drinking Richard's blood. During a struggle, she falls down the stone stairs and is apparently killed. Bob attempts to stake her, but Tony stops him. Tony doesn't believe in superstition. He thinks Christianity is superstition. I guess he's making fun of the Greek Orthodox Church. I have no idea. Tony and Bob return to the UK with Richard. After an apparent recovery, Richard goes back to his old post at Oxford. Tony visits Dr. Hallstrom, an expert in vampirism. Oh, now he's opening up to this superstition stuff. Hallstrom tells him that vampirism is a sadomasochistic sexual perversion which affects frigid women and impotent men. He hints that Richard may already be a vampire. Goodrich tells Richard that he'll have to deliver a scholarly speech at a college dinner. Richard agrees, but is unhappy that Goodrich also plans to announce Penelope and Richard's formal engagement. At the dinner, Richard rises to speak, but instead of discussing his scholarship, he lambasts the establishment. A very poorly written speech, I might add. He declares, "Love me," says the academic, "and do exactly as I tell you." He calls academy the protection racket of the establishment. That sounds like the people at my church. And he denounces the Dons as thieves who have come to take your souls, pointing to Goodrich as the worst of the lot. This movie is way over the top. If you haven't noticed already, Richard and Penelope rush to their accommodation to make love. So after he makes this horrible speech, pointing his finger at Peter Cushing, you, he goes with this fiancée that he absolutely hates, and he makes love to her. But Richard drinks her blood and kills her, revealing he is now a vampire. Afterwards, he flees across the rooftops with Bob in pursuit. During a struggle, Richard falls, and he is impaled on an iron fence. What a great scene. We love this flick. This is just too good to be true. How did they make a godlike, perfect movie like this? Goodrich, who is also coroner for the college, holds a private inquest and tearfully concludes that Penelope and Richard took their own lives while of unsound mind. Wow, what a genius coroner Peter Cushing turned out to be. So, sometime later, Tony and Bob return to Greek to destroy Tiresias. All right. That was not the ending that I saw, though. I saw Bloodsuckers. It looked like a different ending to me. Shooting took place in Greece and Cyprus during the spring of 1969. However, money ran out during production, causing filming to halt. It resumed after additional financing was sourced. When production restarted, new scenes were written and new actors hired, the result of which, according to British film scholar John Hamilton, was that the old and new storylines were cobbled together into something loosely approaching a coherent storyline, with gaps in the narrative bridged by an unconvincing voiceover by Davian. Hartford Davis subsequently disowned the movie, and the fictitious Michael Burrows credited as director. The film was given an X certificate. This movie is rated X by the British Board of Film Censors on November 2nd, 1971, after unspecified cuts were made. Titled Bloodsuckers in the U.S., the film was rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA. I watched the Bloodsuckers version, okay? Hamilton writes that Incense for the Damned had only a limited theatrical release, after which it was consigned to brief appearances over the next few years, propping up obscure double bills. Yes! For example, a UK poster shows Incense for the Damned paired with Swedish horror film Fear Has 1,000 Eyes, while Bloodsuckers and the US Philippines horror film Bloodthirst appear on a US poster. The US pair of films was released domestically on May 14th, 1970. Monthly Film Bulletin wrote, certainly the film suffers at times from a lack of overall control. Most of the unconvincing scenes in which Cheresias is chased around the Greek hillsides could have been trimmed, and in places, an imaginative filmmaker could easily have improved on the novel. Even so, Incest for the Damned is well enough constructed to amount to a richly subversive exercise in the genre, and the various contrasts between Oxford cricket pitch and Greek pagan temple, and ironies, the scarlet-coated dons greedily consuming a college feast while Richard Vampire is the principal's daughter, are not so much exploited as left to accumulate in power and significance. In this respect, the cumulative vacuum at a directorial level may well have finally benefited the film, for more overt shock tactics could only have undermined its pleasingly extravagant symbolic structure. Whoa, that's quite a review. I don't know if it's good to compare a book to a movie like that, though. British film critic Phil Hardy calls Incest for the Damned a fairly faithful adoption of Simon Raven's modern vampire novel, Doctors Wear Scarlet. But he finds that the film fails to adequately convey the novel's notion that vampirism is not a supernatural phenomenon, but a sexual disturbance related to impotence. Hardy also says that the subversive potential of the story is wasted on time-consuming depictions of hippie decadence with cliched psychedelic effects. Yeah, we love Psyched by the 4D Witch. Badly staged chase sequences and facile oppositions between alleged Greek paganism and the genteelly repressive Oxford cricket pitch. Hamilton points out the historical context of the film, noting that it was made at a time when anxiety about the so-called counterculture movement was coming to its peak, and the drugs, psychedelic music, and anti-Vietnam War protests were taking a more sinister turn, e.g., the Charles Manson-led murders in Los Angeles in August 1969. He calls the film an inept and barely watchable mess. We liked inept and barely watchable messes, but adds that T is no longer possible to say how much of the blame for its failure on almost every level falls on Hartford Davis and how much was the result of post-production interference. Critic Gary A. Smith labels Incense for the Damned a fragmented mess. We love fragmented mess. And blames the producers for post-production tampering, which included extensive editing, the inclusion of a totally gratuitous psychedelic orgy scene. It runs a grueling 7 minutes. Yes. And a pointless, tacked-on ending. I have to admit, the ending was confusing, but it did send shivers down my spine. It was still good, even though it was confusing in the movie's favor, though. Smith says that the color location photography is often stunning, Yeah, tell me about it. In addition to standalone DVD releases, the film can be found as Bloodsuckers as part of the 3 DVD box set. Superstars of Horror Volume 1, Peter Cushing, Umbrella Entertainment, 2005. In November 2023, Severn Films released the Blu-ray box set, Cushing Curiosities, which includes the Bloodsuckers version of the film with an audio commentary by Jonathan Rigby and Kevin Lyons. I have all 3 on my list. Diamonds Are Forever, Run, Red Sun, and Shaft. Okay, I'll have to verify that. Karate Man's still going on about other movies besides this one. And he's saying I have it on my list. He knows my list better than I do. Bloodsuckers, 1971, rated R. Although the British gave it an X certificate. 1 hour, 22 minutes. It gets a very low 3.9 out of 10 on IMDb, 785 ratings. So this is going to be one of those so bad that it's good type movies. And I mean that very sincerely. More like this: The Big Scare, Blood for Dracula, The Phantom of the Opera, and Return of the Fly. I'm going to see if I can put all 4 of these on my list. I definitely want to see Andy Warhol's Blood for Dracula with Paul Morrissey. The 2 tabs of LSD that Francois Pascal takes in the orgy sequence were really 2 aspirins. Yeah, it didn't look like LSD. It looked like some kind of popper. As the rock slide falls on Derek, it's obvious from the look, color, and size of the rocks that they are fake. Quotes Tony Seymour, "Are you trying to tell me that a girl sucking blood from a man's neck can induce an orgasm?" The film has been extensively re-edited during post-production. An initial UK cinema version was cut further by the BBFC, with the orgy scene being extensively shortened and a shot of a man kissing a woman's breast completely removed. The film then reverted to the title Bloodsuckers in the UK. And the 1986 video release featured the same cut cinema print. The 2003 DVD release featured a re-edited print, including previously excised shots of the body of a stabbed topless woman, but the orgy scene was only included as an extra on the disc. BBC TV show the uncut version with the orgy scene included in the movie as incest for the damned. Here's a negative review. So we give you my positive review, and then we give somebody's negative review, because most of the reviews on IMDb are pretty bad. All right. B.A. Harrison, dated October 26, 2019. This is a recent one. B.A. Harrison gives this 2 out of 10 stars. Very low rating, even lower than the IMDb average. The title of the review is "I'm incensed at the waste of talent, a relic of the hippie, trippy, psychedelic era 70s. This contemporary take on vampirism There's a colossal waste of acting talent involved. Peter Cushing, Edward Woodward, Patrick Macnee, and Patrick Mower can do nothing to save this boring mess of a movie that treats vampirism as a sexual perversion. Oh, we saw that with with that black vampire film. I forgot the name of it, from around the same time. With impotent Oxford Don Richard Fountain Mower, only able to achieve orgasm while having blood sucked from his neck. This leads him to fall under the spell of sexy Greek vampire Tiresias Imogen Hassel and become part of a hippie cult that dabbles in ritualistic murder. Oh, sort of like Charles Manson? Concerned about Richard, his girlfriend Penelope, Madeline Hind, and friends Bob, Johnny Seca, Derek, Patrick Macnee, and Tony Alex Davion travel to Greece, where they carry out a daring rescue mission. Within the first 15 minutes, a prolonged, multicolored, kaleidoscope orgy scene set to prog rock tests the mettle of even the most determined of bad movie fans. Oh, come on. What's the matter? You never seen Caligula? Make it past this, and you will be rewarded with lots of pretentious dialogue, some incredibly poor action, a perplexing scene in which Richard harps on about an eagle, Macnee plummeting to his death off a cliff, and Richard upsetting his stuffy acting superiors during a banquet. A scene that is both dull and confusing. We like those kind of scenes on this channel. The film finishes with Richard snacking on Penelope, being pursued by Bob across the Oxford University rooftops and falling into spiked metal railings. Not a moment too soon. All right. So there you have the poor review of Bloodsuckers, aka Incense of the Damned, aka Freedom Seeker, aka Doctors Wear Scarlet. Oh, what an awesome flick. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommended. I posted the link to the free movie and the trailer in the description box. Highly recommended. Check it out. Now let's see what I've got coming down the pike. If I can pull up my movies list. So I slept in this morning. I had some building inspectors come and check out the mold and the asbestos situation. And they said it was this place had some habitation issues, and this was going to be good for my case, my lawsuit against the landlords. In the meantime, the landlords have offered me $300,000 if I drop my case. But my attorney's going to call me to tell me tomorrow that this is unacceptable because I can't get a buyout from the new owner who's got well, we'll see how that phone conversation goes tomorrow. All right. I've got Herschel Gordon Lewis, The Godfather of Gore, 2010 or 2011. Not too sure about the date there. Then you've got The Night of the Hunter, 1955, and The Royal Bed, 1931. All right, so that's the end of my review. I went over 30 minutes. I told you what's coming down the pike. Nothing much in the way of Karate Man related fare for this weekend, but I do have plenty of time to do at least 3 reviews, and we're going to whip this movie list. We're going to whip it good. I didn't get a chance to add a bunch of George Kennedy movies this morning because I kind of slept in, but yeah, I'll get I'll get around to adding more of those George Kennedy movies to my list later.